Hey everybody, thank you so much for checking this video out. As the title says, video games are actually good for you and me. It's actually good for everybody, which is crazy. I mean, that was not what we were told when we were kids, especially if you grew up in the early 2000s, 90s, about that time. You just kept telling that your brain was going to rot out of your head and it was all over for you, and like it's just, no, you can't play games. But I'm getting sidetracked. But first off, let me introduce myself. My name is Colin, or GardnerGames PhD on YouTube. I'm a PhD student studying vision neuroscience. And my goal is to spread awareness of science. I mean, that's really what I would love to do. I mean, if I can just inspire one person to say, hey, you know what? Actually, this science thing doesn't sound too bad. It doesn't sound like it's just a thing for nerds. That's what I thought it was when I was just a kid. I kept telling everybody, I'm never going to be a scientist. Turns out science is actually pretty cool. So I just really want to show people that science is, well, sometimes is pretty cool. So please consider leaving a like or a comment or subscribe if you find this really interesting. I'll do more videos like this in the future over different subject matter. And if you have a question, please feel free to ask it. I mean, there's no bad questions ever. There's only good questions. I mean, you're just trying to learn. And so that's how we figure things out. So please, if you have any questions, even if it's not related and it's like, hey, you said you talked about this thing, but I wonder if video games can improve this, or if this other question, and maybe I'll make a video on it. But I also want to put a little disclaimer. I am not this kind of doctor. I am not a medical doctor. I am this kind of doctor. I'm a research doctor in training. Hey, this is editing, Colin. I just want to make it clear that I don't have my PhD yet. I'm a PhD student. And I will get my PhD, and I do already have a master's in this field, but I do want to make it clear, though, that I'm not yet a full-blown doctor. And I'm also not your doctor. So you need to talk to your physician and your own doctors. So please talk to them before you make any changes. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, let's get into the video. So how are video games good for you? Because, I mean, that's the age-old question, right? I mean, we spend so much time playing them, and it would be really good if they could actually improve your brain, improve your vision. But they actually do. So each genre of video game actually improves your brain and your visual system in different ways. So each genre has their own kind of benefits. But today in this video, we're only going to cover action video games. So that's what the scientific community calls games like Fortnite, like Battlefield or Unreal Tournament, Quake, Call of Duty, those kinds of games. And they improve this part of your vision called contrast sensitivity. See, Mom, I told you all those hours in front of a computer screen and in front of the TV playing Xbox 360, PS3, all those good old times. I told you those were good for me. And now I got science to show it. So what is contrast sensitivity? I mean, first we got to figure out what contrast is. So there's two types of contrast sensitivity in contrast, essentially. But today we're only going to focus on spatial contrast. What is spatial contrast? No, Neil deGrasse Tyson, it isn't that kind of space. Well, I guess it includes that kind of space, but spatial contrast is everything that you see around you. So the table that you're on, if you're at a table right now, that's the way you see it. That's spatial contrast, especially on the way they get the tables, where you see the table and you see the floor, that's spatial contrast. The room you see around you, spatial contrast. And then for like an example in my video, the Spider-Man poster, you can see that it's just like this whole poster, and you can see where the poster is, and then you see where the wall is. So here are two definitions from the science community about what contrast sensitivity means. And I took them from articles, from research articles, and I'm going to have those linked in the description below that you can check out. And they should all be open access, which means that you should be able to see them and read them for free. So the first one is by Pelly and Becks in 2013. Their definition is contrast sensitivity defines the threshold between visible and invisible. Another definition by, and I'm going to butcher these names, but Core and Gurnani 2022 is contrast sensitivity is the ability to perceive sharp and clear outlines of objects. So like an example of this is you see the Spider-Man poster, you see the black poster frame, you can see how there's the wall and then there is the poster frame. And that would be a contrast sensitivity. Or even behind me, you can kind of see this Iron Maiden poster. That one's even better because you have this black and then you have the white. So you can see the black frame of the poster and you can see the white door. And that's a high contrast. So what does this mean in real English and not scientific gobbledygook? This isn't the exact definition of it, but essentially for our purposes, spatial contrast is essentially how different the object is than its background. So like with this white right here, this white door, and then the black poster frame, that's really high contrast because there's a really big difference between pure white and pure black. And so spatial contrast sensitivity is how well we can see that object on its background. So here are a few examples. So low contrast. And here is some high contrast. Now we all know and hate this, and I'm really sorry to bring it back up because I know making this video, I went right back to my old like 2021, I think, when this got released. Like the 2021 days of Warzone, when you're just like, oh God, here it is. But this is low contrast. And I know I'm sorry for bringing up the rose skin again. I know that we all put it out of our memory, but here it is again. And then here's high contrast. And so just to kind of get a palette cleanser, a nice palette cleanser, bring us back down from that terrible rose. Here's a picture of my really cute my new puppy, Freya. She just turned 5 months, by the way. So happy birthday to her. So happy 5 months to her. Here's a low contrast picture of her, and because she's a black dog and it's at night, you can't see her. I mean, it's pretty much impossible to see her. And then here's Freya during the day. So this would be like a high contrast. So in terms of video games, what does this mean? This can mean essentially, can you see a player or can you not see a player? So like, remember, I'm sorry to do this again, but remember the rose skin? In the shadow, you can't see her at all. But when it was at like the mountain areas and the snow areas of the map, if that was the final circle, she stuck out like a sore thumb because that's very high contrast and you can see that player model really easily. Any hunt players out there, you know that there's certain skins that just, boom, pop right out. And then there is Kane, which is another skin in that game that before they changed it, you couldn't see him at all. You have him in the trees, and then all of a sudden they were speaking Kane, dude. Like, it's terrible. Essentially, the way to think about it is that people with better contrast sensitivity should be able to see other players and objects in the game a little bit better than people with worse vision. Worse contrast sensitivity. Now, I'm sure the question you're now asking is, Colin, how can I improve this? Because it sounds like this might be really important for me to do well in a game. Is it just impossible to change? Or maybe it's just Maybelline, you know? But you're in luck because literally just playing video games is one of the ways you can improve this ability. A study by Lee et al., and all that means is there are more than 2 authors, and this is their pictures, in 2009, posted in Nature Neuroscience, which is basically one of the big Mac daddies of the science world. Like, if you got posted in there, it's time to go home and celebrate, you know, one of those kinds of things. I mean, well, any publication is time to celebrate, but if you get published in Nature, I mean, it's really time to celebrate, or time to bust out the champagne kind of celebration. But Lee et al. Found that just playing video games improve the contrast aspect of eyesight, literally just playing it. So first, Lee et al. Did a study that basically just compared people who play games, which are action video games specifically. It had to be action video games. So they compared people who played action games to people who did not play action games. They could still play games, but it just wasn't action video games. So they found that action game players had consistently a better contrast sensitivity, so they're able to more easily see objects. So they're easily able to pick out different objects from the background, a whole lot easier than people who did not play action games. So they see this effect and they go, okay, well, is this just because people who can see contrast better, they just choose to play action games, and the people who can't, they just say, oh, you know what, I can't play action games. I'm not going to do it. I'm not good at it. So what they did is they ran an experiment. This experiment consisted of two groups. And so they took people who don't play action video games and they put them into one of these two groups. One group was the experimental group. And so that means they get the intervention, or the thing that's wanting to be tested, which in this case was action video games. So this one group played Unreal Tournament 2004 or Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. So, the good old days of Call of Duty, not this Modern Warfare 2 that just came out, not that cheap imitation, but the real Modern Warfare 2, like the good old days. The other group, which was also known as a control group. So this is a group that basically they don't get an intervention. They just have something similar that they do. And they're basically just compared to the experimental group. They played The Sims 2. So these two groups, what they had to do is they played their respective games. So experimental group played Unreal Tournament or Call of Duty for 50 hours over 9 weeks, and the control group played The Sims 2 for 50 hours over 9 weeks. Lee et al. Found that there was a 50% increase in contrast sensitivity in the experimental group than the control group. Action video game players also saw the object faster than the control group. So they were able to process and say, hey, that's the thing I'm supposed to see, much faster than the group that only played Sims. Action video game players also had a shorter critical duration, which basically means they had a higher sensitivity, a higher capability for seeing objects with less energy required to see it. So they became more efficient. So basically think of it like if you upgrade your graphics card, but you leave the graphics the same. So say you go from an NVIDIA 2080 and you go up to an NVIDIA 3080. The 3080 won't have to work as hard to deliver the same level of graphics. And so that's why you can increase the graphics, because this graphics card is doing better now. The long story short, they became more efficient in detecting an object. This study found that we can improve adult vision, which at the time was thought impossible or unlikely. That it's very hard to improve what you already had. This is called plasticity. Basically, neuroplasticity is how easy is it to change parts of your brain. And this basically said we can actually change an adult's vision system, which was before this study was kind of thought like you can't really do that. So this can do more than just a video game. So of course, getting better contrast sensitivity will help you see enemy players. You can see the objectives a whole lot easier than you could if you had a low contrast sensitivity. These can also help in real life. So like these improvements in real life can improve night driving or driving in other bad conditions. So like if it's really foggy and you can't really see people, or it's raining really hard, or as well as activities, just regular activities like reading. What's really interesting, so the experimental groups increased contrast sensitivity. It stayed with them for months and years after they did this training too. So video game training might actually be a way to also help people with impaired sight to have improved vision as well. But at the time of the study, they weren't really sure at what caused the improvements. They don't really know what was going on under the hood in the brain, what was saying, hey, we see better now. So the too long didn't watch is basically simply playing action video games being Fortnite, Battlefield, all that kind of stuff. They'll improve your ability to see objects, and you can see people, players, everything easier and better. And this can help you in playing video games and make you better in video games, and it can also help in real life. I will definitely talk about other ways to improve your vision, especially contrast vision, in later videos. And these things that can definitely improve your games, and also just how different video games and different genres improve your brain, improve your health, improve your eyes. But as Andrew Huberman says, it is known now that you should probably go outside for about 2 hours a day. kids especially, because your vision is growing. Doing this can offset nearsightedness, or which is also called myopia, and also the development of it. So if you already have myopia, it can make it not get as worse as quickly, or it can keep you from getting myopia. So it is thought also that the combination of the sunlight, the light from the sun coming down and looking at things far away can offset myopia. So they think that combination is really the key, not just looking at stuff far away. Even working on your computer, tablet, or phone outside is better than doing it indoors. You can get it for that about 2 hours a day. So thank you guys so much for watching my video. It really means a lot to me. I really hope y'all learned something today. And if you have any questions or comments, please let me know down below. There's not a stupid question. There's not a bad question. I'm happy to answer it. And if you have a question that is pretty in-depth, I can go and make a video on it. I love this stuff, so I really don't mind. If you guys learned something, please drop a like and a sub. And I hope you guys have an absolutely amazing day, and I will see you next time.